Have you guys heard about the slit-faced woman? One of my followers named Alice just DM'd me on Instagram this whole story about how her grandmother encountered her, and y'all just know if I see this lady, I'll definitely be the one to die. So this was my first time hearing about the slit-faced woman. So when I asked Alice to explain her backstory, this is what she told me. Long story short, the slit-faced woman was a woman that lived in a village in Japan. She was known for her beauty, and every day she would go around the village asking everyone, "Am I pretty?" Because everyone loved her, and she even knew that herself, while her husband was at war, she decided to take advantage of that and cheat on him. When the war was over, the husband drank and drank and drank to celebrate. The night he came home, he was super drunk, and his friend decided to tell him about this beautiful woman that lived in the village, obviously not knowing that this woman was his wife. Both men marched to her house, and when they got there, a man opened the door and said, "This is my house." The drunken man heard a commotion in the back and saw a woman run across the house, which prompted him to barge inside. When the drunken man stepped foot inside the house, he saw the woman was actually his wife, which clicked to him that she was cheating. Out of anger, he stabbed the man that opened the door to death. He then grabbed his wife, and while he was holding her, he held a knife up to her mouth asking, "Do you think you're pretty?" She said yes, and as she was screaming, he slit her mouth open with the knife. No one really knows what happened after that, but it's said her spirit now takes the form of a yokai, or in other terms, a demon. She walks around with a mask, and if you encounter her, she will ask you one question: "Am I pretty?" If you say yes, she will remove her mask, showing her slit face, and then proceed to kill you by slashing your face just like hers. If you say no, she'll proceed to chop you up. It was believed at first that there was no way to make it out alive if you encounter her, but somehow Alice's grandma was able to. Alice told me the story happened when her grandma was a teenager, and she remembers hearing this story all the time. Her grandma grew up in Japan, and apparently there were sightings, and people were on edge about walking out alone or at night. Alice told me her grandma was a rebel. Like, back then, she had balls of steel, and she did not let anyone tell her anything. She said because her grandma heard these stories for so long, it was time for her to put it to the test and see if it was actually real. At the time, her grandma was 16, and she was fairly popular. Her grandma remembers asking her friends if they would be willing to venture out and see if the slit-faced woman was real. When she proposed the idea, every single person backed down except for this one boy that had a crush on her, which was her only witness. Her grandma told Alice it was a Saturday night when this all went down. Both her and the boy snuck out and met at their local bridge, which was close by. She told Alice she was wearing her school uniform, a jacket, and lit a cigarette for courage. The boy came dressed in full defense gear as if he was going to war. Alice told me her grandma had no fear of this lady because it's all been alleged sightings and no real killings. All she wanted was drama and action. Her grandma told Alice that it was deep into the night when both her and the boy started to walk through the town. It was quiet, empty, and the only lights shining around them was from the street lights. Her grandma told her that this whole time on the walk, all she was thinking about was how she could have been in bed sleeping while this boy next to her was shivering with fear. Her grandma threw out her cigarette and decided to scream, "Come out, slit-faced lady." And of course, other things just to egg it on to see if this lady would actually appear. She told Alice that about 20 minutes into walking through the town and getting tired from going back and forth, as they were about to call it a night and go back home, the both of them stopped near an alleyway. This is where they saw one light shining and a person standing in the middle of the lit up area. You know, something you'd see in a literal horror movie. Her grandma said her and the boy stood at the end of the alleyway looking. She remembers crossing her arms and saying, "Who's there? Come over here so we can see you." Her grandma said after saying that, the person slowly turned around. The person was a lady with long black hair, had a white dress on, and was wearing a mask. She said after the lady revealed herself, she heard fast footsteps of the boy she was with running away. She was left alone to deal with the slit-faced woman by herself. In that moment, her grandma remembers cussing to herself because maybe she should have listened to all those stories and she wouldn't be in this mess. Grandma remembers standing still and not running away like the cowardly boy, and even told the woman to come forward. As the woman walked towards her, she had one hand free and one hand behind her, indicating that she had a weapon. As the woman came close to her, her grandma said the lady started to laugh to herself. She also looked her grandma up and down, admiring her beauty. Alice told me her grandma did in fact drop the tough act, and she began shaking with fear. She was scared because she knew what was going to happen next. She was going to die. Her grandma said she smiled at the lady and gave her a bow of respect. The lady stood still and then asked, "Tell me, am I pretty?" Alice told me in that moment her grandma's heart dropped to her stomach. Her grandma remembers thinking about the stories and how even if you were to say yes or no, it would still result in death. She said she didn't want to die, so she had to think of something fast. She kept thinking and thinking. Should she run away? Should she not answer? But then something sparked in her mind. She knew there had to be a loophole that could prevent her from possibly killing, and she had the perfect idea. Her grandma raised her head up, looked the lady up and down with the mask, and said, "You're average." Her grandma said she immediately flinched because she was expecting to get stabbed. But instead, the masked lady looked confused. She started looking at herself and kept repeating over and over, "Average." Her grandma said this was her chance to run like how the boy did, and she did exactly that. She ran down the alleyway, and at one point she heard the lady screaming "average," and then it echoed and then stopped. When she turned around, the lady was gone. It was like that was the spell to stop her. Alice told me after that day, her grandma learned that if you meet the slit-faced lady, you have to give her a dismissive answer which will make her confused. This will make her think about her looks, which will give you time to run and will make her disappear again. Alice's grandma has never seen the slit-faced woman again, but now shares her story in case anyone encounters her.
Imagine going to a wedding full of people only to realize that these right here are not humans like us and you're basically trapped in a room full of jinns. That's exactly what happened to this woman right here. Her name is Nora, aka the Beyonce of Kuwait. Yes, this story takes place in Kuwait, by the way. Nora was basically a famous singer there, okay? Her and her band used to sing traditional stuff in weddings. Another way to say it, she was like a celebrity there, okay? You call her for your marriage, she comes, she sings, and then she leaves with money. You're probably like, okay man, this sounds like an amazing job. I mean, imagine going to a marriage, having fun, people recognize you, people are a fan of you, and you get money for singing a couple of songs. No, it was amazing until a terrifying thing happened to her and made her quit her job and be traumatized forever. Now, before I tell you what happened, you know what to do. Save this video and come back to it at night so it's more enjoyable like that. But one day, Nora got a call. She was like, man, should I pick up? I don't really work today. You know what? Let's pick up the phone. Hello? Oh, the person calling her was a woman, okay? And she basically said, hello? Is this Nora? The famous Nora? Oh, Nora basically responded, oh yeah, thank you so much, that's me, the famous Nora, yeah. The woman on the phone basically said, oh my god, thank you so much for responding. Everybody loves you here. Can you please show up to my daughter's wedding tonight? This is when Nora responded, oh, I'm sorry, like, I don't work today, I'm really sorry. The woman on the phone started begging her, okay? She was like, please, this is my only daughter, can you please show up tonight? She loves you so much. When Nora heard this from the woman calling, she was like, oh my god, these people are annoying. Okay, you know what? I'll make an exception for you. I want to see your daughter happy tonight. So, Nora ended up accepting, okay? The woman gave her the address and she told her to come, her and her band, at 10 p.m. Well, Nora and her band finally made it to the house at 10 p.m., okay? And before even entering, Nora was like, okay, I'm sorry, I did bring you here, but come on. I know that nobody works today, but we gotta do it for the love of the game. Her band basically responded, oh, come on, don't sweat it, Nora. You know, we want to make people happy, right? It's only a marriage after all, right? Nora and her band finally made it inside the house, and the first thing they noticed is that the house from the outside looks normal, right? But from the inside, it's something different. The house was really bigger than they expected, okay? And the decor was really noticeable, okay? Somebody did their job on the decor. You know, Nora and her band were amazed. They were like, wow, this is by far the biggest house we'll perform in. While the band was examining the inside, the woman came. Remember the woman who told her to come here in the first place? The woman who begged her to show up for her daughter, blah, blah, blah. Yes, she came. She was like, oh my god, Nora, I'm a big fan. And you know, she wanted to shake her hand. When Nora saw her, she was like, oh, what's up? How are you? Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. This is your daughter's wedding? Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's about to be amazing. She shook her hand. Nora noticed something, okay? The woman's hand were dry, okay? And it was not moving. You know how humans' hand move? Her hand was not moving, and she could feel her bones. When she felt that, she started having a little doubt, okay? She was like, okay, I've never seen something like this before. I mean, okay, you know what? I'm not judging. And she was not trying to scare her band either. So she was like, okay, to the woman she was speaking, she was like, where do we perform? The woman responded, you see, we love you so much. We do appreciate you so much for coming. So we prepared everything. You do perform in that corner over there. You see it? Yeah. Oh, Nora responded, oh, okay, that's really sweet. You know, thank you so much. Yeah, let's go over there. Yeah, okay. See you there. In this corner right here, Nora and her band started performing, okay? And what a performance. Everybody was loving it. Everybody was shaking their heads, vibing like, Nora and her band, while singing, they were feeling the energy. They were like, yeah, okay, that's what we're talking about. That's the type of vibes we like. You know, See, while singing, Nora noticed a detail that she could have noticed from the beginning, but she didn't for a reason. It's almost like it was hidden from her. Why is everybody dressed in old clothes? Well, nobody was dressed in the typical wedding clothes of today, if you know what I mean. Everybody was dressed like the 17th century. So Nora was like, what the hell is going on? Nora told herself, okay, that's weird. You know, she kept singing. She was still giving some side eyes, but you know, she kept singing. I don't know the song she was singing. I wasn't there with her, but she was singing something like, I'm alone ashamed. What? I'm alone ashamed. Let me sing. See, meanwhile Nora was singing, one of her band members started tapping her shoulder. And you know, she's trying to communicate but sing at the same time. She was like... The band member who was trying to get her attention was the one playing guitar, okay? And he was like... Look at their legs. Look at their legs. Nora was like, what do you mean their legs? Shape of, yeah. This is what Nora saw. Goat legs, and she understood that from the beginning she was not with humans. Yup, she's singing with jinns. If you don't know what a jinn means, scary creature, I talked about him in my first post, go check it out. But when Nora saw this, she was in shock, but she kinda knew that something was wrong from the beginning, you know? Remember when she shook hands with the woman who invited her? Yup, in that moment she felt that something was not right. So Nora and her band kept performing, okay? They were not trying to get suspicious, but you know, their voices kept getting low, and they started thinking about this. Those are jinns, but they're in human forms. And you know, while thinking about this, they noticed something. It's midnight. One of her band members was like, hey yo, Nora, we should go. The vibe switched up, it's not the same anymore. These things right here are not even dancing, they're jumping and making weird noise. It's scaring me. You know, it's midnight, we should go. He said all that keeping his voice low. It doesn't matter because he's playing an instrument so nobody's hearing him. Problem is, in Nora's case, she can't talk, she's literally singing. And this is where she had to step up, talk to some of the jinns and told them that we should get a break. Oh, the woman who invited her in the first place, the jinn, came and she was like, Nora, I heard that you want a break, is that true? Nora basically responded, yeah, it's hot out here. And you know, we're kind of tired, so can we go in that room, please? Rest for about 5 to 10 minutes and then we'll come back. Jin basically responded, yeah, you can go. Now the band went to a small room, closed the door, and they're finally isolated from the rest. This is where Nora was like, nobody is getting out, I don't care. You see these creatures, they're turning crazy right now. It's past midnight, so they're turning crazy. Nobody's getting out unless you wanna. Band members basically responded, bro, do you want us to be stuck here forever or what? We should get out. Nora basically responded, look, the woman invited me at 10 p.m., right? I don't think that's a coincidence. She invited me because she can only show up in this form at night. Look, what I'm trying to say is we pretend to be playing and singing until the sunrise. Once the sun rises, boom, we get out. We don't look back. Now, the band came back to the main room and they are forced to sing and play instruments. But things kept getting worse. Because some of the jinns not only started making weird noises and jumping, they started tearing their hair with a part of their scalp and throwing it down on the floor. Imagine the band playing, seeing, being forced to see all this stuff happening in front of them, but they can't do anything about it. Now, they kept playing for about 5 hours straight, and some of the band members started feeling sick and they started throwing up, you know, after all they saw. You know, as soon as the clock hit 4 a.m., meaning sunrise, every jinn stopped. They literally stopped moving. After that, they stopped moving, the lights started turning off, and the place started falling apart. This is where Nora was like, okay, this is our sign to go. After a long run in the hallways, they made it. They got out from the house. And this was the house. If you didn't notice anything yet, hold on. This was supposed to be the house they were in. This is what they saw at 10 p.m. This is where they left at 4 a.m. You see the difference? They left and they were all this time in an abandoned house. What happened is that the jinns basically gave them the illusion that they were in this house right here. So the bands kept running in the streets just to make sure that there is nobody after him. And you know, after running for a while, they saw somebody. That somebody basically asked them, why the hell are y'all running? Is this a marathon? Or like, I don't... Nora and the band were like, whoa, don't talk to us. We know that you're a jinn. Stop talking to us. So that somebody basically responded and he was confused. He was like, what? What the hell are you all talking about? Nora and the band members realized that he's normal, he's a normal human being, and they were like, oh, okay, he's on our side, don't worry. You know, they started explaining to him what happened to them in this house. After hearing their story, he said something crazy. He said that this house right here has been abandoned before even he was born.
Can we show him the older homestead?
Yeah, let's go. As you know.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Was that you?
Yeah, that's on either side.
They went to both.
Yeah.
Hi guys, so today I'm gonna do another story time. So for today's story time, I'm gonna be talking about duendes. This is something that happened to me a few years ago, so if you guys don't believe in the supernatural or what I'm about to say, then keep fucking scrolling because I don't want to hear it. This story actually takes place in this room, but this happened back in 2022, so like 3 years ago. So my baby was about to be 3 months. We moved here in March of 2022. Around that time, we didn't have a bed like we do now. We had a queen size air mattress, okay? So keep that in mind because this plays an important role in the story later on. Like I mentioned before, I was afraid to sit, so we would take turns watching the baby. So I would get my full 8 hours of sleep while my boyfriend would watch the baby, and then he would get his full 8 hours of sleep while I would take over and watch the baby. So I remember on this specific day, it was my turn to get some sleep while it was my boyfriend's turn to watch over our baby. Before falling asleep, I do remember my boyfriend having the baby in his swing. I'll insert a picture right here. So yeah, he was strapped in and everything, and I just told him, hey, make sure you wake me up. I won't get mad. You can wake me up 30 minutes from now, an hour from now, or after I get my full 8 hours of sleep. Make sure you wake me up if you get really, really tired, okay? So I made it very fucking clear. I told him, please wake me up no matter what. If you're getting tired, if you need to go to the bathroom, whatever you need, please wake me up, okay? Because I do not want to leave my baby alone for any little reason. So eventually I fall asleep and I wake up around 3 to 4 a.m. The first thing I notice is my boyfriend. I look over at my boyfriend and he had fallen asleep. Okay, so at this point I'm fucking angry. I'm like, bro, I told you to wake me up if you get tired because I don't want the baby alone. And then I look over to go check on the baby. The baby is no longer in his swing where my boyfriend last had him. I look over at his crib. The baby is not in his crib. So at this point I'm fucking hyperventilating. I'm fucking crying. I'm like, where the fuck is the baby, okay? I look over at my boyfriend and I am shaking him. I'm calling him by his fucking government name. I'm like, Gilbert, wake the fuck up. Where is the baby? I'm moving his arms. I'm moving his legs just in case he had fallen asleep on the baby. And I had thought, like maybe he was carrying the baby and he had fallen asleep with him in his arms and he must have fell over him, right? So I'm fucking crying. I'm screaming at him and he eventually gets up. And he's like, whoa, what's going on? And I just remember yelling at him at the top of my fucking lungs. And I'm like, where is the fucking baby? So eventually my screaming gets to him. He gets up and we start looking for the baby. And we finally find the baby. My boyfriend actually found the baby. He was face down by our air mattress, under our air mattress, okay? So I was just concerned. I was like, what the fuck? How the fuck did the baby get right underneath our air mattress? It wasn't making any sense. And since my boyfriend is atheist, he was trying to find any explanation, and obviously the first thing in my head was okay, this is paranormal, right? This has to be paranormal. There's no way the baby just magically appeared right underneath our air mattress. That doesn't make any sense because he was strapped on, right? And at 3 months old, my baby was never able to move at 3 months old. I have videos and pictures where he is stiff and he's not able to roll around yet, okay? So eventually I calm down and I'm telling my boyfriend, you know what, you should go get some sleep because I don't trust you looking after the baby. I know you're really tired, so I'm just gonna look after him. So I give him his next bottle, and as I'm scrolling on TikTok, I just let a few hours pass by and I eventually get tired. So I wake my boyfriend up and I'm like, babe, can you look after him? Because I'm getting really, really tired. And so he does, and I eventually end up falling asleep again for the second time that night. And I had a dream, a weird dream. Remember, it was a duende, and I'm in my backyard, and I just see this little duende run around, and I'm looking for him, and I eventually wake the fuck up, okay? I don't end up telling my boyfriend about my dream because since he is atheist, he always has an explanation for things, so I just didn't want to hear it. A few days go by, I'm scrolling on TikTok again, and I come across a video, and it deals about duendes. So in my head, I'm like, okay, this is way too many coincidences. First the baby, then this dream about duendes, and now I'm coming across a video that I've never came across. On my TikTok, I've never came across a video about duendes. So I'm watching it, and I eventually pause it because I'm reading the comments, and I come across a comment that it literally catches my attention, okay? So, by the way, her comment is in Spanish, and as I'm reading, my mouth is literally to the floor. My jaw is open, and I'm like, what the fuck? This is way too many coincidences. So she mentions that she went to the bathroom, she left her baby alone for a few minutes, and then she came back, and her baby was nowhere to be found. By the way, she had left her baby in his swing too, okay? And he was around the same age as my son was. He was also 3 months. And she explains how she's looking everywhere for him, and she cannot find her baby. Then eventually she hears her cries, and she goes back to where she left the baby in the room. She doesn't see the baby in his swing, and she eventually looks under the bed, and there he was. The baby was underneath the bed, and she sees something pull him away a little bit more to the middle of the bed, and she eventually grabs him, and she's shook when she sees a little figure running around. So as I'm reading the comment, I click under her comments because she had another comment under her comment, I don't know if you, yeah, whatever. And as I'm reading it, there's this lady saying, I don't know if you knew this, but duendes are attracted to baby boys, especially when they're around 3 months. And I mean, I'm obviously in shock. I'm like, this is way too many coincidences. Like, so we can't find our baby anywhere. And then when we do find him, he's underneath our air mattress, and there's no explanation on how he got there. Then I had the weird dream about duendes when I've never ever had a dream about anything like that. And then now I run into a TikTok, I read the comments, and there's a lady with the same exact story like mine, and underneath there's this lady talking about, oh, that duendes are attracted to baby boys, especially around 3 months of age. And so I started digging in a little bit more, and I started doing a little research. So as I'm doing research, I'm watching so many videos, and all these videos are in Spanish, and basically they're saying like you're very, very lucky, you're very fortunate that you woke up on time to find your baby, you know, alive and safe and sound, because a lot of women are very unfortunate and their babies goes missing, their babies no longer found, or if they are found, they are no longer alive.
This spooky story submission is actually so terrifying that it led to the person who was telling me the story to end up in the hospital because of this. So for the story, we're going to call her Danielle, and I'm going to tag her below. We're calling her Danielle because that's what her childhood friends and her family used to call her. So until Danielle was about 14 or 15 years old, she lived on 78 acres of land. She said that in that 78 acres of land, only about 3 other people lived on that land. So it was a pretty secluded area, and Danielle really liked to play outside. That was her favorite thing to do. She loved watching the deers, the rabbits, but her favorite was climbing trees. Something that really bothered her though is that her mother would never let her play outside after dark, and we're talking like not even after the sunset, as the sun started setting. She didn't like this, but she obviously obeyed it because it was her mother, and so she had to. Until one day, her mother decides that she is going to go out to a friend's house, and Danielle doesn't want to go with her. But if Danielle doesn't go with her, it means that she's going to be left alone. Her and her mother decide that this is okay and that Danielle is old enough to handle this, so she stays home alone, and her mom leaves at about 3 p.m. Danielle decides that she's going to go outside and she's going to play in the woods. She said that she was outside climbing trees when she felt this overwhelming feeling of being watched. It was overwhelming, and it felt like it was coming from above her. But she keeps looking up, and she's not seeing anything, so she's thinking that maybe her mind's just playing tricks on her, and she kind of shrugs it off. At some point, it starts to get dark, and she knows that she's supposed to go home, but she doesn't want to go home, and she's home alone, so she can do what she wants. So she decides that she's going to stay outside. At around 7:30 p.m., when the sun had already set, she starts hearing a noise, and it's her mother calling her name. She's calling for her to come home. So Danielle is like, oh crap, I gotta get home. So she starts walking home, but she still has this overwhelming feeling of being watched. When all of a sudden, she starts hearing twigs and leaves snapping behind her. So she looks behind her, but she doesn't see anything. She finally gets home, and she realizes that her mom is not home. So while she's outside, she calls her mom, and she's like, Mom, were you home? Like, I just heard you calling my name. And her mom was like, I have not been home this entire time. I'm still at my friend's house. She said this really freaked her out, and she decided to turn around and look in the woods, and she looked over, and she sees a dark figure standing outside in the woods. This freaks her out, so she runs inside, she slams the door, and she deadbolts it shut. She then goes over to the window, and she looks outside of her blinds to see if it's still there, and of course it is not there. She again decides that she's going to shrug this off. Maybe her eyes are just playing tricks on her, and she decides to make dinner. This feeling of being watched, this overwhelming feeling, follows her until the morning. And she said that she didn't feel like she was being watched by one thing, she felt like she was being watched by like several things. She decides to go to her camera because they have cameras in the house, and there's a new video popped up, and I'm assuming that they were motion censored. She didn't say in the email, but she did say that there was a new video, so she looks at it and she doesn't see anything, but she hears this tapping sound on their front door. It's important to note right now that their front door is a big metal door that her mom had put in when they very first moved in. Nothing is on the camera, she cannot see anything, so she decides that she's going to go outside and she's going to look at the door. Outside on the door, there are huge claw marks on this metal big door. She said that she then realized that this could not have been an animal, because if it was an animal, number one, why is it trying to get into her house? And number two, how could it make these claw marks on this big metal door her mom had installed? So this really freaked her out, so I think her way of just coping with things was just shrugging it off. So she does just that, and she goes out in the woods again, and around 7:50 p.m. she's playing in the tree, climbing it again, and she gets that overwhelming feeling again. This feeling again is feeling like it's coming from above. So she decides to look above her again, and what she saw was terrifying. She said that she looked up, and when she looked up, she saw the most figure she had ever seen in her life looking at her. And not only was it looking at her, but it was calling her name, her real name, not Danielle, her real name. But not only was it calling her name, it was in her mother's voice again. Danielle is absolutely terrified at this, and she starts bolting home, and the entire time she's running home, she can hear this thing running after her. She calls her mother on her way home, and she was absolutely bawling her eyes out. Her mom gets home and she assures her that it's nothing and that everything is going to be okay and that it's not a big deal and that she was probably just seeing things. Danielle did say that this experience was so distraught to her and scared her so badly that she actually ended up being hospitalized for 2 or 3 months because of it. She said she couldn't eat, sleep, drink, nothing. The crazy thing about this is that this is not even the only thing that happened to Danielle. Something else happened to her that even traumatized her further. This is getting really long, so I'm gonna have to make a part 2 on it. If you guys want to hear that second part, that partly also contributed to her being in the hospital, then drop it in the comments and I will make a part 2 and tell you guys that story. That story is even scarier. So what do you guys think of this? What do you guys think this was? Like, this terrified her so much that she's still in therapy to this day. And the second thing that happened to her definitely didn't help at all. So drop in the comments for part 2. Also, if you guys have anything to say to her or anything to like help her feel better, please also drop that in the comments. She could use all the love and support that she could get right now. She is going to see it. I am going to tag her. Thank you so much for your submission, Danielle, and thank you for letting me tag you. You are the first person that has let me tag you, so I appreciate that. And if you guys want to send me your true scary stories, then there's an email in my bio. Just go ahead and email me there and I will come on here and I will tell your story. You do not have to be tagged if you do not want to. My name is Kaisa. I tell you scary stories that are true every single night. So if you like that, then hit that follow button, engage from the bottom up, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much and have a spooky night.
What the fuck was that? Bro!
What's going on around you?
I don't know. I'm frozen. I am frozen.
Did the window
Sean.
break?
Let's read a couple scary stories I found on Reddit. This story takes place 4 years ago and it still haunts me to this day. It was Christmas night and my family and I were driving home from this fancy restaurant. I, unlike my family, wasn't tired, so the 45-minute drive seemed perpetual. On top of that, my little sister was constantly moaning about how her friend didn't get her anything for Christmas. After about 20 minutes of driving, my dad stopped at a gas station to get some cigarettes, and my sister, brother, and mother all got out to pee. I stayed in the car as I had already gone before we left. Once they all left, I decided to play a few games on my phone. I looked at the car clock and saw that 10 minutes had passed, so I immediately wondered what was taking them so long. As soon as I peered out of the car window, I saw a man staring at our car. The man startled me as I didn't know how long he had been watching. What made it even more unnerving is that he had a plain blank face. No expression was shown. It was hard to make out any features as it was pretty dark and he wasn't standing in an illuminated part of the station. He was about 5'9" and looked to be middle-aged. Once he saw me notice him, he started walking towards the car, and I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't scared. Luckily, my dad came back with the rest of the family just as the man took a couple of steps. My dad apologized and told me he had been in an argument with the cashier. I didn't care. I was just glad that my dad was with me. I took another glance at the man outside, and he was still staring, but this time he had an annoyed look on his face. We drove off, and for the rest of the car ride, I couldn't stop thinking about that man. This wouldn't have been too bad if it had ended there, but it didn't. Later that night, I was watching YouTube while everyone else was asleep. Luckily for me, a storm was raging over us. I enjoy storms. It makes me cozy as I'm laying in bed. I put my phone down and just enjoyed the ambiance. That didn't last for long as I heard something smash into the window behind me. I lurched forward and nearly fell out of bed. I thought a bird had just smashed into the window. I parted the blinds and what I saw next haunted me. I saw a man standing out by my parents' cars, looking up at my room. I took a closer look and I nearly had a heart attack. It was the same man that I saw at the gas station, only this time, when our eyes met, he grinned. Being the 14-year-old I was, I did the manly thing and screamed at the top of my lungs. My dad came running down the stairs and entered my room. "Why are you screaming?" he said. I told him about the man, and I explained everything that had happened. My dad grabbed a baseball bat and told me to call the police. After 10 minutes, the police turned up outside our house and found the man in our shed. He got arrested, and that was the last time I saw him. The next day, my dad inspected the house, and we found the handle of our back door had been damaged, but not completely broken. This gives me an eerie feeling, as if he actually managed to get in, he could have harmed or possibly unalived us. I know skinwalker stories are a little overplayed, but this is genuinely one of the most terrifying experiences I've ever had. For a little context, I'm half Native American, with most of my family being from Oklahoma. I never really believed any of the stories I heard as a kid until I'm pretty sure I had a real encounter. When I was a kid, maybe 4th grade, me, my mom, and stepdad would visit my grandparents' property in Azle, Texas, to hunt or fish and whatnot. Their property was surrounded by a couple of acres of land, so sometimes I would wander off from the house and explore wherever I could. One day, I decided to go for a short walk in the woods like normal. Maybe 5 minutes into my walk, mind you, I could still see the house in the distance. I hear my mom's voice say my name. It sounded distant, but so distorted and close at the same time. I called back to her and looked around me. As I was turning around, I see this tall creature with gnarly teeth and gray, tattered skin looking at me from behind a tree. I stood there completely shocked because of how terrifying this thing looked. It started to move from behind the tree towards my direction. I took off running and crying back towards the house. This is easily one of the most terrifying things that's ever happened to me, and I never spoke about it until a year ago. That last story is going to be on my podcast, which comes out tomorrow, and that will be available to listen to on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. You can find my podcast and my YouTube in my bio.